Have you ever stumbled upon a verse in the Bible that just stops you in your tracks? A passage so strange, so out of place, that it feels like a glimpse into a forgotten world. For many, that passage is Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 4. It's a short, cryptic section that talks about the sons of God, the daughters of humans, and a mysterious race of beings known as the Nephilim. It hints at a primeval age of wonders and terrors, a world so strange that it almost feels like mythology. But what if it's more than that? Who were these Nephilim? Were they giants, fallen angels, or something else entirely? Today, we're diving deep into one of the Bible's greatest mysteries. Let's start by reading the text itself. Genesis 6 says, "When man began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose." The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward when the sons of God came into the daughters of man and they bore children to them. They were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. Right away, we're hit with some confusing terms. Who are the sons of God? And who are the Nephilim? The text says the Nephilim were the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of man. They were mighty men, men of renown. The word Nephilim itself is Hebrew, and its exact meaning is debated. Some scholars believe it comes from the root word nephil, which means to fall. This leads to the translation, the fallen ones. Others suggest it might mean giants, which is how it's translated in some versions of the Bible, like the King James Version, when the term appears again in the book of Numbers. So, are we talking about giants, fallen beings, or both? This is where things get really interesting. There are three main theories about the identity of the sons of God, and each one completely changes how we understand the Nephilim. The first, and perhaps the most ancient and dramatic interpretation, is the fallen angel view. This theory proposes that the sons of God were angelic beings who rebelled against God. They descended to earth, took human wives, and their unnatural union produced the Nephilim, a hybrid race of giant, powerful beings. This idea isn't just pulled out of thin air. It's heavily supported by ancient Jewish non-biblical texts like the Book of Enoch, which was widely read and respected in the period before and during Jesus' time, goes into great detail about this. It names the leader of these fallen angels and describes how they taught humanity forbidden knowledge, things like sorcery, warfare, and vanity. In this view, the Nephilim were an abomination, a corruption of God's creation. Their presence and the widespread wickedness they helped create were so severe that it was a primary reason for God sending the great flood to cleanse the earth. This interpretation paints a picture of a cosmic rebellion spilling over into the human world, with devastating consequences. It's a story of mythic proportions, full of celestial beings, forbidden love, and monstrous offspring. But not everyone is convinced by the fallen angel theory. Over the centuries, another interpretation gained popularity, especially among later Christian theologians. This is the Sethite view. This theory argues that the sons of God were not angels at all, but human beings. Specifically, they were the descendants of Seth, Adam and Eve's third son. In Genesis, Seth's lineage is presented as the righteous line, the one that began to call upon the name of the Lord. In contrast, the daughters of man were from the ungodly lineage of Cain, Adam's first son, who murdered his brother Abel. So, according to this view, the story isn't about a supernatural union. It's about a spiritual one. It's a cautionary tale about the godly line of Seth intermarrying with the ungodly line of Cain. The result was a generation that abandoned its faith. Their children, the Nephilim, weren't necessarily physical giants, but giants in their wickedness and rebellion against God. They were men of renown in a negative sense, notorious tyrants and powerful leaders who led society astray. This interpretation keeps the story entirely within the human realm. It's less supernatural, but it carries a powerful message about the dangers of compromising one's faith and the importance of separating from worldly corruption. Then there's a third, less common theory, the royalty view. This interpretation suggests that sons of God was a term used in the ancient Near East to refer to powerful kings, nobles, or judges. In this scenario, the story is about the abuse of power. It describes tyrannical rulers from powerful dynasties who, through their power and influence, took any woman they desired, likely forming large harems. This was a common practice for ancient despots. Their children, the Nephilim, would have been a privileged, powerful warrior class who oppressed the common people. They were mighty men and men of renown because of their royal lineage and military might, not because of any supernatural origin. This view sees Genesis 6 as a social and political critique of tyranny and polygamy, showing how the abuse of power by the ruling class led to widespread violence and corruption, which also contributed to God's judgment in the flood. So we have three compelling theories: fallen angels creating a hybrid race, the godly line of Seth, intermarrying with the ungodly or tyrannical kings abusing their power. Each one fits the text in its own way and offers a different lens through which to view this enigmatic passage. The mystery doesn't end in Genesis, though. The Nephilim, or at least the memory of them, resurface later in the Old Testament. When Moses sends 12 spies into the promised land of Canaan, they come back with a terrifying report. In Numbers 13, they say, "And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who come from the Nephilim. And we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them." Here, the Nephilim are explicitly linked to giants, the sons of Anak, a known tribe of very tall people. The spies were so intimidated by their size and strength that they felt utterly insignificant. This report terrified the Israelites and caused them to rebel against God's command to enter the land. Now, was this a literal reappearance of the pre-flood Nephilim? Some believe so, suggesting that perhaps the demonic or genetic line survived the flood somehow. Others argue that the spies were just using the legendary name Nephilim to describe the fearsome giants they saw, exaggerating to make their point. It's like seeing a huge basketball player today and calling him a titan. You're using a mythological term to describe a real-life giant. This connection to giants is reinforced by other figures in the Bible, like Og, the king of Bashan, whose bed was over 13 feet long. And of course, the most famous giant of all, Goliath, the Philistine champion whom David fought, was described as being over 9 feet tall. Some traditions connect these later giants back to the original Nephilim, suggesting a lingering lineage of these extraordinary beings in the land of Canaan. So, what are we to make of all this? The identity of the Nephilim remains one of the Bible's most debated and fascinating mysteries. Were they the monstrous offspring of fallen angels, a symbol of a compromised faith, or the product of royal tyranny? The truth is, the Bible doesn't give us a definitive, clear-cut answer, and maybe that's the point. Perhaps the story of the Nephilim isn't meant to be a zoological or historical textbook entry. Instead, it serves a profound theological purpose. Regardless of which interpretation you favor, the message is consistent: the world before the flood had become deeply corrupt. There was a blurring of boundaries between the divine and human, the sacred and the profane, the righteous and the wicked. This breakdown of order led to violence, pride, and a society so evil that it grieved God to his heart. The Nephilim, whether literal angel-human hybrids or just powerful, wicked men, are the ultimate symbol of that corruption. They are the mighty men of renown whose fame came from power and violence, a stark contrast to the humility and obedience that God desires. Their story sets the stage for the flood, showing us just how bad things had become and why such a drastic judgment was necessary. It's a powerful, strange, and slightly terrifying glimpse into the ancient world. It reminds us that the biblical narrative is filled with depth, mystery, and stories that challenge our modern understanding of the world. It pushes us to dig deeper, to ask questions, and to wrestle with texts that are anything but simple. The Nephilim remain shrouded in shadow, a testament to a forgotten age of giants, and a powerful warning about pride, corruption, and the consequences of blurring the lines that God has drawn. What do you think? Were the Nephilim giants, angel-human hybrids, or something else? Let me know your theories in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective on this ancient mystery. Thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our next exploration into the fascinating corners of history and scripture.